show you a simple little trick that you can use to create mossy looking stone like this in ASA. This doesn't work on official, but it doesn't require any mods. You can use mods, but you don't have to. I'm going to show you both with and without mods. Hello, my fine feathered friends. This is Songbird, and today I'm coming at you with just a quick little building tip to, just add some variation to your castle walls textures. Hang in there, and I'll show you how to do it. But you should know this is only possible on a server or single player if you have terrain clipping and structure clipping enabled. If you cannot mesh structures through each other, if you get the obstructed message whenever you try to do that, then this will not work for you. And because of that, also, it will not work on official, just so you know. All right, there we go. To keep it simple, how you do this is you have to stagger snap points. So, for example, if I put a regular wall and then I try to mesh another regular wall through it, or something that's the same size as a regular wall, like a door frame, it'll break the wall that was there, right? You can't layer those kinds of structures over each other. But if you layer structures that are different sizes and or shapes, then it behaves differently. So, for example, if I put some of those quarter walls, if I put a sloped wall, either kind of sloped wall, I can even do it with a full wall. Let me just show you that little strategy as well. So we've got different sizes of walls. If you're going to paint it like I do to make moss, then you need to do that before you place the next layer. You need to always paint the first layer. If you're going to use skins, though, you always want to do skins on the second layer. That's just what works best for me. I am using a modded spray painter here. This is the Architect Structures Remastered spray painter. I love it because it's got all the colors here and lets you switch colors easily on the fly. It doesn't consume paint, and so I don't have to keep reloading it constantly. Very, very handy. The color that I usually use for moss, I use two colors and I kind of layer them over and around each other. They are Filth and Putrescence, which sounds, yes, ever so attractive, but it's what works. So we will paint these. Let's paint some foundations too. And then now with those different sized walls in there, I can take a regular wall and snap it over and it doesn't break it, you see? But what if I want to layer full walls over each other? Well, then there's a handy little trick you can do. If you use a secret doorway, you can layer a secret doorway over a wall, but sometimes you get this issue, see? If you do that. So I don't prefer to do it that way. Usually if you want a full wall, the easier way to do it is to just use 4 of the quarter walls. And sometimes in order to mesh things through each other, you want to use what I call Ark reverse psychology. And that's where you put a piece next to or opposite where you actually want to place one, and then you snap the one you want off of that one. And then you can pick up the one that you used for scaffolding, like that. So there you go. You see how that works. And for floors here, let me change the light really quick so you can see better what I'm doing. Okay, so over these guys, you want to paint the foundation first. Because the thing is, if you try to paint it later, it can be very difficult once two things are meshed together to paint the one that you actually want to paint. It can be very difficult and you may end up painting the wrong one, and it just is a lot easier if you paint the first one and then mesh an unpainted one over it. So you can use quarter ceilings, and once again I do that opposite trick. Here's a triangle. If you just want to cover part of the floor, you can also like do a couple of triangles kind of next to each other. I like to make the pattern look randomized. That just makes it look more natural. I can also use some quarter ceilings in here. Try not to make it too perfect. We can also do this with full ceilings. Of course, you can't mesh foundations through foundations, and you can't make a full-sized ceiling share space with a full-sized ceiling. But if you switch to a different size, you can work around it. So you can snap a ceiling meshed into a foundation like that. I believe you might even be able to do that on official. You would have to check and let me know on that. You can also, if you want to vary the pattern, use a hatch frame. Let's paint some more of these guys. And I usually do this mostly with stone because, of course, stone is what moss is most likely to be growing on. So you can also use a stone ceiling and you can flip it, which will give a different sort of look. Of course, that will have the wood on the floor. If you're using vanilla ceilings, if you're using Architect Structures ones, they do have a version that does not have the wood on the underside. There's so many nice little quality of life changes with Architect Structures. It's one of my favorite building mods. There we go. So this ASR one. Okay, yes, with Architect Structures, I can cycle through different variants of textures, and you see the block texture that you can do with Architect Structures stone ceilings looks really good with painted vanilla texture like that. There's also a smaller block like that. Gives you another different look. But we can also just use, if we want to, we can use this guy and you can cover the whole thing with that. And wouldn't this look good in a dungeon or something, you know? Have the ground look like it's all slimy with algae. And if you want to introduce another color, you actually can. Just have to find new places to snap ceilings and stuff so that they're not sharing a snap with another piece that is the same. And it works best, I've found, if you can do it so that at least part of it is sticking out to where you can access it. So let's try, can we access this here? It can help if you can get it to come up in the info here so that you know exactly what you're targeting. Come on now. Nope, it's not going to let me target that. Oh, there we go. Oh, stone triangle ceiling. That was there. Okay. So for this, I'm going to switch it to putrescence, the lighter color here. Now this spot there. Now we got another color kind of for some highlights in there. And this green specifically works really well, I feel, because it's got that very yellowish green that you often will see with algae or moss that grows on stone. It's a specific shade of green. You can experiment with other colors if you want. You can try completely different colors. Do your own thing, but that's just the technique that I usually like to use. Let's try adding another triangle there and maybe another one here and see if we can get some of this lighter color on those too. If we can get it to target the right piece. Because I don't actually want to paint the foundation because the foundation is already painted with our darker green. Oh, there we have it. Okay. So this is why it's easier to paint the pieces that you put down first. But then if you want to do this triple layering thing, then you kind of have to do it this way. So there we go. We've got the ceiling painted, and then I'm going to put another plain layer over top of that. Let's do that same thing here. Now if we access this triangle here on there, this is good for making it look like the floor has scattered straw on it as well, like maybe in a dungeon cell or something where you got some straw down there to absorb the filth or something like that. So it's really fun to experiment with layering different textures like that. So I can start with a full wall here and let's do another full wall. Have that effect that we want. We can also do a little bit of this sort of thing. And then let's layer another wall on top of here, some short walls here. And we'll paint these first and then put in a secret door here. Okay, that's going to do that on me. Sometimes if you flip it, then it will stop doing that. And so that can be one reason potentially to flip a wall. And if you don't like the wood on the other side, then once again, if you have access to Architect Structures, they have a stone wall variant that doesn't have the wood bracing, but then I can hit E to flip it and that'll make the texture different enough that it won't flicker like that. It's only if the texture is exactly the same that it'll kind of fight itself like that. And then because of the fact that there's quarter walls here, that adds another snap point so that I can even layer another wall this way, which further helps to kind of break up the pattern like so. And you can also use the tall walls as another option in this layering. Really, the options are kind of endless. The only thing that it won't let you do is snap walls together that are exactly the same. Now, if I did want it to be this way and I didn't want it to flicker like that. Another thing I can do is I can put a skin on it, and that'll change up the texture so that it doesn't flicker anymore. And now I've got Castlecraft walls here that look like they have moss on them. So that is another possible way of doing it. Sometimes you just got to keep playing with it until you like it. That's pretty much the way I usually build. I just play with it until I like it. And then if it's looking too blocky like that, then I can bring in some of these guys to introduce some different angles and use either of the colors of green. Now, since the wall's already in place, of course, that makes it a little harder to target, but you still can. And then I can now even put some border walls on top of that if I feel like that's too much green showing. See? And I do usually use this technique for castle walls, but I could see this also being useful once the Ninja Turtles mod comes out. If you're trying to build a sewer, there you go. You're welcome. Since I do usually use this technique for castle walls, that also helps the fact that I don't often like how the back of this looks when I'm done. The way I deal with that is I'm just going to pick up some of these. I'm going to grab some quarter foundations. I love that they added quarter foundations. So we'll swap those in there. This is another way to vary the texture in your stone floor if you want to make it look mossy. Let's paint those ones and then switch to the darker color, the filth. Paint those ones with the darker color just to break up the pattern. If I put my mouse over the piece next to it, you can see that the pattern would repeat and there'd be that same larger patch of stone on the left there. But if I swap out the direction it's going to be facing by mousing over this side or this side, and that's going to change the rotation of the piece, and so the texture will be different. So that's another way to change it up. But anyway, now with some quarters in there, what I can do is I can make my wall double thick. And of course, you could do the same thing with layering these walls as well. I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to show that right now. Just showing that you can easily hide the back of the walls if you're doing this in vanilla and are not able to get a hold of walls that don't have the timber frames on them. You can do it this way, or you can use structure cosmetics like Castlecraft. So this may look like a mess, but as you can see, you can definitely layer walls in ASA, provided you have clipping enabled. And then if you have structure mods available as well, then you have even more options. Just experiment with it. You know, there is no wrong answer. It's fun. It's art. It's finger painting. Sometimes you need to embrace imperfection, because imperfection is actually what makes something look organic or natural, whimsical. If it's too perfect, if you see something out in nature that is perfectly shaped, if you see trees that are lined up in neat rows, then you know that that's not a naturally occurring forest. You know that someone planted that. To look natural, things have to have imperfections. They have to have that element of randomness to them, which can be hard for us as humans to let go of control and let that happen. But if you do, if you can have just a little bit of randomness, then it can make it look like nature is reclaiming a structure, which gives it a whimsical effect. So yeah, I would encourage you to experiment with that and let me know how it goes. So anyway, this is just a really quick one. I hope that helped. And I'm excited to see how you use this idea. If you use this idea, then please pop into my Discord and put it in the screenshots channel in there. I do look at and comment on every build that's posted in there. My Discord is linked in the description, and I'd love to see you there. And if you've watched this far, please leave a sunshine emoji in the comments. Thanks so much. And if you enjoyed this little quick tip video, then I think you'd enjoy watching this one next. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now.